artificial intelligence. And the title of her presentation today is "The Robot Did My Homework, AI Office and Classroom." Melissa has been doing a lot of work in AI, checking it out, trying it out in her class, using it as her personal assistant. And so she's going to share some of her adventures in AI today. Melissa.
Thank you so much, Dr. Layu. Hi, everyone, colleagues, friends. Melissa Brooks here. Thanks for being with me for this hour while we kind of dive into artificial intelligence and try to unpack kind of the nuances that maybe you're hearing, dispel some myths, share real life firsthand examples of what you're encountering in the classroom. And then with my own kind of research on this subject, I'd like to share with you some things that I've learned along the way, and then also some tips and tricks. Not that I'm a pro, not that I have it all figured out. I don't. So that's the disclaimer to begin with.
Okay, real quick. Mazar, are you having sound issues?
We got it settled. Yep.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, great. You'll notice, and I'll just kind of kick off the conversation. You'll notice in the participants here, there are several forms of me joining this Lunch and Learn. And I will talk about this more when we get to the different programs I'm utilizing as an instructor that are AI-based, but one of which is Otter. And Otter is an AI robot that attends all of my meetings, not necessarily when there's privacy issues at hand, so I'm not advising with this feature, but my committee meetings, if there's a webinar that I really want to attend, but I can't physically be there, I send my AI robot. And the AI robot doesn't ask questions, they're not interactive, but they take amazing notes and snapshots throughout the conversation that might be valuable to me. And then generally we'll summarize the meeting at the end, which is really all I'm after most times anyway. So I'll talk about that when I get to some AI that I'm using in the classroom and for my role here at Reynolds. Before I kind of start with the presentation and share this short clip with you, I wanted to pose a question. And I would really love, I think at the end, we're going to do some feedback, aren't we? A feedback form. Mm-hmm. So if you would, when you do the feedback form, if you would drop your answer to this question in the comments section, I would really appreciate it because it's kind of my own internal checkpoint as well. If the answer is AI, what is the question? So I'll say that again. If the answer is artificial intelligence, what is the question that we're asking? I'm talking about that in terms of what that means to you as an individual person, what it means to you as an educator in higher ed. Maybe you have K through 12 kids. Maybe you are going back to school. Whatever hat you wear in life. If I pose this to you as though AI is the answer, because that's kind of what we're hearing. If AI is the answer, then what is the question that we're asking? I'm gonna let that marinate for just a second. And maybe as I go through the presentation and we talk a little bit more, you'll have some ideas that you can jot down. And then maybe by the end of our time together, you'll have a fully formed sentence that you can kind of pose or toss back to me in the comments. All right, let's get started.
Once upon a time, in a galaxy far, far away, Iowa, this young girl with exceptionally crimped hair and stylish side pony dreamed of being a teacher. The year was 1995 AD, and the world was about to change forever.
This internet thing, do you know anything about that? Sure. What the hell is that exactly?
Well, it's become a place where people are publishing information.
Right.
So everybody can have their own homepage. Companies are there, the latest information. It's wild what's going on. You can send electronic mail to people. It is the big new thing.
Yeah, but it's easy to criticize something you don't fully understand, which is my position here.
Go ahead.
But I can remember a couple of months ago, there was like a big breakthrough announcement that on the internet or on some computer deal, they were going to broadcast a baseball game. You could listen to a baseball game on your computer. And I just thought to myself, does radio ring a bell? You know what I mean?
Our story picks up in present day, where ironically the crimped hair and side pony are back in fashion. And that little girl, she did grow up to be a teacher. Right on the cusp of another revolutionary wave of technological advancement, known as artificial intelligence.
This morning, an exclusive look inside of OpenAI, the company behind the groundbreaking artificial intelligence chatbot that everyone is talking about, ChatGPT.
Showing up now.
I spoke to OpenAI CEO Sam Altman inside of their San Francisco headquarters on the day they released their latest version, GPT-4, which can write essays and speeches, offer logical reasoning, analyze pictures, and even take tests outperforming most humans, scoring in the 90th percentile on the uniform bar exam and 700 on the SAT math portion.
What changes because of artificial intelligence?
Part of the exciting thing here is we get continually surprised by the creative power of all of society.
I think that word surprise, though, it's both exhilarating as well as terrifying
That's
to
for
people.
Sure. I think people should be happy that we're a little bit scared of this. I think people should be
You're
happy.
a little bit scared.
A little bit, yeah,
You
of course.
personally.
If I said I were not, you should either not trust me or be very unhappy I'm in this job.
Chief Technology Officer Mira Murati showed us how it can help with your taxes. We input information for a typical family of 3.
So you're copying tax law, just multiple pages of tax law.
And within seconds, the standard deduction,
GPT-4 says it's $24,000.
which was correct. And it even identified a picture of a dog and was able to recognize the dog was probably hungry. Watch as we take a photo of what's inside this refrigerator. The technology analyzes what's there.
I see that you have some bread, some mozzarella cheese, tomatoes, and mayonnaise. You could make a simple grilled cheese sandwich with these ingredients. You could make a strawberry toast by spreading the raspberry fruit spread on the bread and topping it with sliced strawberries. Perfect.
Providing a recipe. But is this also a recipe for something else?
On the one hand, there's all of this potential for good. On the other hand, there's a huge number of unknowns that could turn out very badly for society. How confident are you that what you've built won't lead to those outcomes?
Well, we'll adapt it.
You'll adapt it as negative things occur?
For sure, for sure. The current systems are still weak relative to what we expect to create. And so putting these systems out now, while the stakes are fairly low, learning as much as we can, I think is how we avoid the more dangerous scenarios.
Is there a kill switch? A way to shut the whole thing down?
Any engineer can just say, like, we're going to disable this for now.
The model itself, can it take the place of that human? Could it become more powerful than that human?
It waits until someone gives it an input. This is a tool that is very much in human control.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, which is artificial intelligence and how we see it presenting in the classroom. And then I'm going to give you hopefully some takeaways or either validation if you're already doing these things in your classrooms that might help you address this. So I'm curious, for those of you who are able to be interactive with me in the headspace, if you had to resign yourself to a camp of either radio or internet, where do you land right now in terms of your understanding, adaptability, or eagerness to engage with artificial intelligence? So to reference the David Letterman clip, are you a radio guy or gal, or are you an internet person? What do you think? You can drop it in the chat or you can feel free to chime in. I'd love to hear your perspective. Mazar says he's internet guy. Okay, Mazar, love it. Radio. Clever for the IT guy to say radio. Appreciate that, Iham. What about you? Radio? Radio, okay. Well, it's interesting to me because as I tried to kind of communicate in the video, I was right on the cusp of this. I didn't grow up with a computer in my classroom or in our home. It was something that I had to learn how to do. And so, like I tell my students, almost with every subject that I teach, for example, writing, guess what? Nobody's born knowing how to write. Everybody has to learn, and therefore everything is learnable. So if we kind of approach this big, scary elephant in the room, intimidating maybe is less than scary, and we understand that everything is learnable, then that kind of frames the perspective we should take as we engage with this technology. So another thing that I think was really important from the video that I really tried to communicate was this is a tool. It's not, we're not oblivious now as humans, like we're not necessary or teachers are irrelevant or all the jobs are going to be taken. I don't think we can stand firmly in that place right now. But what we can say with a lot of confidence is, look, if we're not training our students on how to engage with this technology, then either they're not going to maybe not lose a job because they don't know how to do it, but they may not get a job and lose it to somebody else who does. So it's not that we're not training them to be the best geologists or IT people, security, whatever, or paralegal or nurse. But if they've never encountered artificial intelligence until they get to their first day in the career, they are already behind. And so we need to do the best job we can to help prepare them for that reality. So what would that look like? And the first thing is to understand, what the heck can this ChatGPT even do? And I'm talking specifically about what we call generative AI. There's different classifications here, and I'll go into that a little bit, the differentiation between the two. But let's just think about what ChatGPT can do, what our students can use it to do. And ChatGPT is generative large language model, LLM. If you want to put that in the chat for note takers. It can write poems and essays, it can make art, it can transcribe, but it can do more than that. It can do math, which, man, maybe if I went back to college, I could pass math now because I would have AI helping me with equations or checking my work, right? So it can do a variety of things, but it can't think. It can't think. So it's regurgitating information, clarifying concepts, leading you to an end result. But the element for human interaction is incredibly important. So if you think about who the winners and losers are of AI, before we really dissociate ourselves from us versus them, I'm just curious, can anybody name artificial intelligence programs that you may already be using every day?
Grammarly.
Grammarly, excellent. I use that all the time too. What other AI technologies are you using?
I'm gonna go old school. Remember Clippy?
Yes, Clippy from Word.
To help you create, it looks like you're creating a letter.
It does. Would you like to, how about that subtle nudge from Google about, hey, you've got an attachment. You said you attached something, but you didn't. Do you want to fix it, right? There was a new academic paper, which I'll list or link in the last slide here. It's not currently included, but this was just published from the Harvard Graduate School of Ed. They have a next level hub where they are constantly generating higher ed AI relevant material. And I wanted to read this one sentence to you to kind of get your brain fueled to be thinking about other forms of AI that you're already using every single day that you may not know is AI. So listen to this sentence. If you think of images that come to mind when you think of AI, what do you think of? Well, you might think of like robots with a bunch of wires and stuff popping out, but that's not really what this is. The field of AI encompasses a wide range of technique and method that perform functions that we may not typically associate it with, such as when you go to the airport and you give them your passport or boarding pass or your ID. What are they using? What artificial intelligence are they using?
Facial recognition.
Facial recognition. Okay, so that's a security element for sure. How about when you go to google.com in the morning, first thing, right? Hopefully you're not checking Google, but you pop up on Google and you have a whole bunch of recipes for pies to bake for Thanksgiving. Or you have suggested mocktails because you've recently decided to cut out alcohol from your diet. Or you have a to-do list of things you must experience at Disney World for your spring vacation. Where is that information generated from? How do they know how to feed your curiosity? Well, that's artificial intelligence. Those are the search robots, personalized news feeds on social media, customized suggestions. How about this one? Route planning. Google Maps, anybody? I use it every day. I drive a hybrid or an electric car now, but the whole internal system is based on that. Suggestions for different routes of traffic and whatnot, okay? And then finally, Google searching. And what does artificial intelligence, what purpose does it serve for the winners at this table? Well, it helps us to improve accuracy and relevance. So if you have those two things in your mind, accuracy, relevance, jot that down somewhere. Let's think about how we can strengthen our teaching or our student work in terms of accuracy, in terms of relevance, if that is what AI is meant to do. And again, maybe that's going to feed your answer to the question that I posed originally. If AI is the answer, what is the question we're asking in the first place? Now, UPenn and all the higher ed and Ivy Leagues, they've come up with all these very scary reports of jobs and professions and professional degrees that are headed towards obsoletism. Is that a word? Because of artificial intelligence. And again, I don't think this is an issue of this is going to exist or it's not going to exist. What I'm subscribing to and what I'm encouraging you to adopt for your own kind of headspace is AI is not going to take over your job, but somebody who knows how to appropriately use AI might. And so again, knowing that everything's learnable, what are some things you can start doing today in the next semester to help encourage students monitor, assess, or utilize AI to make your life easier and hopefully a little bit more engaging with your students? So here are some 3 tips that I just want to start real small. 3 tips. 1, clarifying your objectives. When I think about an assignment, a project, homework, whatever I want for my students, I don't think about it in terms of how many points is this worth. I don't think about this in terms of what chapter is this connected to. I used to assign a chapter of reading and then assign the homework questions at the end of the text. Okay. And it wasn't because it was like a shortcut for me. Believe it or not, it was harder for me to grade because I was reading the same damn thing every semester. And it was so, it was like regurgitated information. But as a beginning teacher, I just kind of needed that home base. Now I've fallen far from home base and I'm way out in left field. And a lot of times I co-create the assignments with my students in real time. And a lot of times I utilize artificial intelligence to help us get thinking and brainstorming about that. But when I develop any assignment that's going to be graded for my students or even not, I really want to clarify what is the skill I'm trying to teach them that they walk away from here learning that they can apply in the real world. So for my students, it's a majority of critical thinking, solid communication, whether that's orally or in writing. Sometimes it's comparing and contrasting. Something that my students especially struggle with, but are getting better at, is when I give them 4 answers, all of which could be correct. How do they decide the best one? That's the law school admittance test right there in a nutshell. So I'm clarifying my objectives. I don't want you to do this assignment. I don't want you to answer the 5 questions at the end of chapter 4. I want you to understand the difference between a limited liability company and an S benefit corp, and which one would be advantageous for our client in this particular situation. So I'm not leading them to water. I'm saying the water is over there somewhere. We've got some things that we've got to get through to get there. How do we do it? So I'm much more focused on what is the outcome of the skill that's to learn, and then I backdoor design it from there. The second thing is I've updated all the language in my syllabi, and I have a sample that'll be on the next slide. Please copy and paste it if you want to. I have no ownership over this. I'm free to share. But until Reynolds comes, and maybe we have now, have we adopted an official AI policy?
We're almost there.
We are almost there as an institution. For whatever comfort this is for anybody, I just had a University of Richmond admissions person speaking to my class right before this started. And she said, yeah, we haven't done anything with AI either. So, okay. If the almost Ivy League schools are also behind, then we're in good company. We're doing just fine. But I want to show you some updated language to include in your syllabi or even in Canvas as it relates to specific assignments. And then finally, clarifying the expectations. Do you allow AI use in your classroom? Do you not? Do the students know? Are they too scared to ask? I've pretty much landed on the side of I'm allowing it. I specifically say it. Sometimes I even promote it. And then I put the obligation on my students to identify, I used AI for this. And this is what I did. This is how I started. Now, one example that I just did, I literally pulled a screenshot today, was I get tired of reading this contracts my students draft. Contracts can be pretty blah anyway. But I really spiced it up this semester and I said, you know what, guys, I want you to use ChatGPT. I want you to use ChatGPT to generate a simple contract. And I don't care what it's about. I don't care what you're selling, what service you're providing, doesn't matter to me. But here's the criteria. Again, those specific clarifying things. You need to define the parties and the purpose. You need to specify the terms and conditions. You need to define obligations and responsibilities. Now, how will they know how to do that? Well, that's what I've taught them. That's how they know. That's the human element. Putting it all together, I've written the recipe for them. They've learned it and internalized it, but they're going to use the robots to help assemble the pie. And then we'll taste it together and see how it turned out. So clear expectations. Then I have a grading and defining rubric that shows them, hey, full marks, amazing job. Number 4, almost there, missed some things. 3, wow, you missed quite a bit. 2, wow, you're really messed up on this, but you never will again because you don't want to get this again. Or 1, you did the bare minimum and I'm going to call you on that. Okay. Now notice that my lineup of the expectations are directly what I'm assessing. There's no ambiguity here. When you have ambiguous learning objectives and assessments, that's where AI can trick you. That's where students can submit work that's not their own, because that's easy to get. If you're asking me, I need a 500-word essay on, what are you teaching, volcanoes?
Sure.
All right, 500-word essay on volcanoes. I can do that in 2 seconds, and it'll probably be pretty good. And Dr. Lay may or may not be able to tell if that's true or not. And especially if she's grading me on my grammar, or the fact that I'm talking about volcanoes at all, or that whatever, I'm going to get an A on that. But if she's asked me and is assessing me on the difference between this volcano and this volcano, and what she specifically said last week in class, if I agree or disagree, and I have to inflect my human element to it, there's no way that AI can capture that. There's no way. It doesn't exist. So here's some sample syllabi language. This is where I set the tone for my students. First sentence, this is a clause that goes in every syllabus that I use. The use of generative AI tools like ChatGPT or Bard, it is permitted in this course. And it is permitted for the following activities. And then I give some suggestions. Brainstorming and refining ideas, fine-tuning research questions, finding information on the topic, even drafting outlines to help you with your thought process, to check your grammar and style. But here are also some things you're not permitted to use it for. This should not be impersonating you in classroom discussions, even though I have my AI robot in the room at this very moment. Okay, you should not be writing entire sentences, paragraphs, or papers to complete class assignments. Okay, so again, putting the parameters around it. Then I also say that they're responsible for the information that they submit. And especially as future lawyers or paralegals, then they need to be thinking about the legal ramifications that have yet to really be defined by law, by the way, which is intellectual property or misinformation, and most importantly, unethical content. Now, what I do then sometimes for students, I will scaffold the assessment rubric. So students who choose to use AI will be held to an even higher standard in terms of authenticity, communication on ethics and ethical obligations versus a student who's generating it from scratch. Because the truth is, if you're using AI to produce your work, it better be great. And it better be super on point, because AI, if you're using it appropriately, is getting you further down the field. You're starting at the 50-yard line. So it better be of higher quality. But students need to understand what that means. Now, I have a really great resource that's in the slide deck, which will be available to you all. And I'm not going to go through all of them now, but I just wanted to mention, for those of you who have an interest in instructional design, Dr. Lay has helped me a million times with instructional design work for my own courses, for my program, looking at both a macro and micro level. there's this amazingly rich tool that is an instructional design learning outcomes and how those should drive the instructional design process. And I won't open this now, but I believe it's like 20 some pages, and it is so simple to follow. It's got maybe 17, 20 different instructional design ideas, and then very concerted bullet points of how to implement that strategy. So if you're curious of just trying one new thing in one class, take a look at this resource. It couldn't be more simple to follow. And that has helped me just beyond anything else that I've ever done in professional development terms. So let's talk about how do we utilize AI in terms of teaching and the content that we have in our classes already. I'm not going to pretend that I recreate every class every semester. I don't. And I'll be really honest about that. And I'm sure a lot of you don't either. Now, it's not a hardcore copy and paste. I have to keep things fresh and relevant. That's on me. And again, I feel like using a copy and paste from Canvas is akin to my students asking AI to draft their first round of a contract, which means I'm starting at the 50-yard line. It better be great from here on out. So when you go through and you work 1 or 2 assignments or 3 or 4 assessment pieces in your classes from semester to semester, maybe choose one that you could redesign in this way to encourage students to play around with AI or to utilize it for yourself. One thing that I do a lot is explaining thinking. AI can't explain the way that I think. And so I might not always do this in terms of assessment, but it might be something where a student is asked to draft a motion that's based on a fact scenario that I've given to them. Now, they could probably use AI to draft that motion, and that's fine. But I want to know, well, why did you choose to say that? Why did you end your request to the court with a specific example to award them an injunction? What was your thought there? AI can't do that. They can't type that in. ChatGPT, what was I thinking when I wrote this? That can't be done. So I actually don't care if they generate the motion using AI, but they better be able to explain that to me, why they did the things they did. An inclusive pedagogy tip, just for everybody who's really into trying to provide the most inclusive methods of teaching for students where maybe executive functioning is a struggle. See me at my later TED Talk on neurodiversity in April, or where maybe there's cognitive impairment, or there is processing speed issues, or there are language and reading challenges. Maybe be creative in the way that you allow your students to evidence to you their understanding. Because the other thing is AI right now, in the form of generative AI, it can't produce a recording of your students saying how they understood this assignment. And so that's something that you could do. Videos or podcasts have become really popular. The other thing that I will do, because AI can't technically do this yet, although I've played around with it a little bit, I will have students listen to a podcast instead of my pre-recorded lecture or something, listen to a podcast, and then ask them very pointed and specific questions about that episode of the podcast. How does this relate to the thing we're looking at in the classroom? How is this connected to something relevant and real time that's happening in your life today? So connecting technology and the utilization and processing of that from real world and classroom, and then allowing students to record through Canvas or to post that. Again, if you're really concerned about students cheating or underperforming in your courses because they're using AI, these are surefire ways to misstep that, okay? I'll do one more explanation, then I'll pause for questions along the way. I'm really big on mind mapping. In fact, this is a great way for me to teach note-taking to my students. I am just going out on a limb here, but I would venture to guess most of you would agree with me, our students are terrible at note-taking. If they're even taking notes at all, they're highlighting every sentence of the book, or they're literally writing down like every word I'm trying to say, which has really helped me lead from the classroom more in conversation, so that it is a conversation together where we're co-collaborating what we're even talking about today. Because if you're sitting there frantically trying to write down every word I'm saying, you're missing all the things. And it's also a great cue to me as an instructor. I bet this student is really anxious about making sure they don't miss something. I wonder why that is. Maybe they processed slower. Maybe they would really benefit from having a handout. What cues are you picking up from your students in their note-taking ability? Well, one way to navigate that is by encouraging them to mind map, which is, does anybody remember the movie? Oh my gosh, it's the guy who's the janitor, Matt Damon, and he does all the brilliant calculations. Thank you. Good Will Hunting.
Great.
Are you familiar with that movie?
Of course.
It's the unsung hero's journey of the guy who's a brilliant mathematician working as a janitor at a college, at Harvard or something, right?
Mhm.
And at night, he goes into the whiteboard and he's solving all the equations. And people are like, whoa, that's so cool. And if you ever had a college professor, I did, where we had 4 walls of blackboards and they started at one and just wrote all the way across. Do you know what I'm saying? And you're frantically like, what's important? I can't even see. I have no idea what's going on. This is an idea of that. It's a scatterbrain, squirrel brain of mind mapping concepts and linking your learning. So what I might do is start with something like the big question. If I'm teaching resources to students, consider this the fake news lecture, okay? This is my fake news lecture. And they can find all kinds of sources, cases by using AI. They can type it into ChatGPT. Give me 5 cases that deal with breach of implied warranty of fitness for a particular purpose, and they'll generally be correct. But they can't link that concept to something that I've taught them. Only a human can do that. And so I might ask them, let's start with an overall question. Is this source law? Is it? Yes? Great. Continue down the path. No, it's not. Go down another path. What subject do you teach?
Biology.
Biology. Okay, excellent. I'm going to show a mind map of biology. Let's just do it together right now to show you that this can happen. I'm going to whiteboard it. What concept did you teach today? I'm really putting you on the spot here. You're doing amazing, by the way.
Plants, and so photosynthesis.
Okay, let's just even start with plants. And this is going to be terrible because for whatever reason, my text thing is not working. So I'm pivoting. Can everyone see my screen still? Plants. Okay, great. So Nakia, would you tell me one thing you know about plants? You're not a bio student, but what is one thing you know about plants? You're muted though.
I don't know. They have pistils. They produce
Okay.
chlorophyll.
Yes, they do have a pistil. I don't know what that means. Does anyone know what a pistil is?
Yes.
What is a pistil, Karen?
Well, it's part of the reproductive portions of a plant.
Okay, that feels more significant. So plants, let's talk about reproduction. Oh my gosh, this is so bad, you guys. Do you guys see my handwriting? It's like a serial killer. I do apologize for that. Here's my point. Now, this takes the place of students. First of all, AI can't create this. Second of all, here's what I teach my students to do. So Nakia, you knew little something about the pistol. I don't know how, or piston. Piston, I wrote it wrong.
No, it's pistol.
Okay,
No,
it is
it's pistol. It's pistol.
Huzzah! This is what I'm saying. We know more than we think, right? General knowledge. Now, here's what I have my students do. That pistol came up real quick for you, but you forgot that it was connected to reproduction. So guess what you need to study? You need to study reproduction. You already know pistol. You got that word, but how does it connect? How do you map it to what I'm trying to teach you? That's your growth spot. Don't restudy the things you already know. Lean into the things you're uncertain about. This is mind mapping. This cannot be done by artificial intelligence. Debates. Well, I'm big on this, okay? What I will absolutely do, and I'm just going to use ChatGPT right now. I'm going to absolutely use ChatGPT, and I'm going to ask for some issue for us to debate. So, Ehab, what's a hot button issue you're dealing with right now in IT?
How to teach programming in a better, effective way. I don't know. You put me on the spot.
I know, this is called cold calling in law school. But I knew you guys could handle it. So we're just jumping in. All right, no, that's great. So coding, is there any kind of ethical concerns about coding that you're trying to talk to with your students?
Like ethical concerns, like what?
Like, is it okay to use artificial intelligence to write code?
I actually use it because, rather than reinventing the wheel, take a code that works and tweak it to your needs. This is what the way I do it. Yeah.
All right, great. All right, so let's ask ChatGPT to give us something to debate in real time about that. So I'm going to just prompt chat to say, give me a debatable question that challenges first year college students to consider ethical obligations of artificial intelligence in coding. Provide a sample reply to both the affirmative and the negative argument. All right, so in 20 seconds or less, no, what was that? 3 seconds? 2? I don't know. Okay, so Ehab, if I were subbing for you in your class, and this was one of the learning objectives, here's what I would do. I would provide these 2 paragraphs to my students. Yes and no. Now we talk about it. Where do you side? Do you think there's an ethical issue? Do you not? And then if everybody's doing that whole thing where, students are like, oh, I think it's great. Everybody's yes. Then I say, okay, now make me an alternate argument. Use what AI has given us and make it human. Okay? Debate, powerful. Revision, another big one that I do. Anyone who has any writing, ask your students to start with ChatGPT and then ask them to revise it. Or create in real time a document and have them revise it in real time together. Collaborate. If I'm teaching in my legal research class, or writing, which I literally just did, let me see if it's still there. Oh yeah. I was having some fun with students on this. Here's my previous contract writing drafting rubric. All right. I asked ChatGPT to draft the rubric for my students. And it did. And I gave it the specific formatting. So I might say something like, or let's say I have a student sample. Let me see really quick if I have, well, these questions were actually generated by AI too, but let me pretend this is student work. How can, let's say, provide feedback on the following question set to encourage growth mindset from the interviewer. And then I'm copying and pasting these questions. So now I'm asking AI to kind of sort of do my job, which is to provide some feedback. My students were preparing for a guest speaker and I asked them to put together some questions. I asked them to utilize AI to generate those questions and they did. Now, what I just asked AI to do was to tell me how I can make them even better. And then what I might do with my students, notice these are suggestions. Some might be stronger than others, some might be weak. Now what I'm doing is I'm reviewing this in real time with my students. Okay, guys, look at this second one. In the linking to personal growth, it says, after each question, consider adding a follow-up query that asks the interviewee to reflect on their personal growth or lessons learned in managing these aspects. That was that question you get in interviews of like, tell me about a time when you disagreed with somebody and how did you handle it? You know what I'm saying? So I'm using these prompts even in professional development and growth of my students as a build-in to their assignment work. Giving them assignment choice. Consider giving them an opportunity again to evidence their understanding in a way that makes sense to them. I'm telling you right now, and this is held true as a mother in raising my kids, if they have a personal stake, they'll perform better. If I ask them, nobody wants anything I'm making for dinner, ever, nobody. But if I tell them, we're making dinner tonight, what should we make? And they say macaroni, hot dog, and green bean. And they're part of it, and they're opening the can and they're mixing it. They're 9 out of 10 times more likely to eat that meal than if I had lovingly prepared an entire spread. Well, why is that? That's the way the human brain works. Allow your students to have a buy-in of the choice with or without ChatGPT, it doesn't matter. Prompt challenges is another one that I use for sake of time. I'm going to kind of bypass that because I want to get to a space where we can offer some feedback and some questions. But before we do, let me play one more thing for you here.
Educators around the world are engaged in a
Was that you or me?
vibrant discussion
Kevin
about the
Conti
implications
messed
of
up.
ChatGPT right now. The consensus is that professors might be tricked. The program can draft a reasonable essay, answer short response questions from a microbiology test, and produce academic papers with ease. However, productions by ChatGPT can still be fundamentally flawed. But I'm not talking about inaccurate information alone. I'm talking about its ability to merely synthesize rather than think critically.
As educators, we strive to make our students knowledge transformers, rather than knowledge digesters. That means that memorization is less valued than critical thinking. In fact, one of the general problems with many educational systems today is that they value learning the facts more than being able to remember information over time. To generalize the learning to new situations. And to creatively develop a new way of thinking about an issue.
The question before us is how we can productively use a technology to help our students become knowledge transformers. In the same way that calculators became an important tool for students in math classes, this has the potential to become an important tool for writers who want to hone their critical thinking skills along with their communication skills. How might this happen? In higher education, we can openly let our students use artificial intelligence for their class assignments to generate the first draft. Students can then learn how to move beyond the first draft to make their essays better.
Your students already know how to use this new tool. I don't want to sound rude, but we are likely more sophisticated than our teachers at framing the questions and getting solid answers from the bot, even though it was just released. What we do need to learn is why, at least for the moment. ChatGPT would get a lower grade than we could earn. It is exciting to see my professors responding to this new reality in the classroom and recognizing the instructional value of ChatGPT for deeper, more engaged learning.
ChatGPT is only a threat if our education system continues to pursue points and not knowledge. The old educational model in which teachers deliver information, to later be condensed and repeated, will not prepare our students for success in the classroom or the jobs of tomorrow. We should allow that model to die a peaceful death. Used in the right way, ChatGPT can be a friend to the classroom and an amazing tool for our students, not something to be feared.
If you're still wondering what it might look like to use artificial intelligence in your classroom, you don't have to look very far. In fact, Melissa Brooks used artificial intelligence to craft this entire presentation. She hand-selected the AI robots like me, and used Chap to generate script. A link to her cited references and learning sources can be found at the end of this presentation. She'd like to give a special thank you to Kathy Hirsch-Pasek and Elias Blinkoff for their January 9, 2023 article in the Brookings Institute, which inspired her to question artificial intelligence as friend or foe. And she'd also like to thank you, her colleagues, for being brave in the face of change and for your presence and attention today.
So I have a resource link at the very end, which is a hyperlink to all of the materials that I used in my conversation, including that scholarly article by the Brookings Institute that I referenced at the end. And as I just mentioned, in terms of the classroom piece and the element of incorporating AI into teaching, I'm also using it in my professional life as well. I no longer use class textbook end of chapter questions that might seem dated or irrelevant, or let's be honest, the answers are plastered all over the internet in Chegg or previous students who have just done the assignment and uploaded it. I'm creating content in real time for students and creating real problems that we solve and collaborate on together in real time. For my meeting minutes and for meetings where I can't duplicate myself, I don't have a doppelganger in any sense of the word, I send my AI robot, Otter AI, to all my meetings to transcribe because I just don't have the capacity to take notes. When I had to draft my professional goals this year for my APTO, I used ChatGPT to draft at least 3 of my professional goals. And I told ChatGPT to write them in the framework of the SMART goal assessment, make them specific, measurable, okay? And that gave me the framework. And I could say to ChatGPT, look, I really want to work on strengthening the rigor in 120, write a professional goal in SMART goal language that allows me to do that or challenges me to do that for first year paralegal students at a community college level. Specific prompts. But you know what? Even though ChatGPT is generating that, the human inflection was the fact that I needed to know that I need better rigor, which class I'm selecting, how I'm going to measure that, how I'm even going to implement the suggestions from AI. So the human element is not removed. It's still integral to the part, but this can really help you instead of sitting down and brainstorming, what the heck do I want my professional goals to be? Or what is one good thing I can say to the student's work? I'm out of good jobs. Okay, the good jobs aren't cutting it anymore. I need some better feedback to give my students. If you copied their work and you pasted it into AI, into ChatGPT, which is the 3.0 version still free, 4.0 is released for profit, 5.0 is on the horizon, 3.0 will get you what you need. If you copy your student work in there and you say, provide positive feedback and 3 suggestions based in clarity, brevity, and capacity on this student's work, which are the 3 things I know as the teacher I'm assessing it for, see what the feedback is. That gives you the starting point, right? We're starting again at the 50-yard line. We're not waiting to rush the field. So hopefully this has given you some ideas, maybe some framework about how I'm using it, model anything that you'd like. But I'd like to leave the last 10 minutes or so for questions, comments, concerns, and I'm happy to take those now. Anybody, any of my Zoomers have a question about AI? Or want to offer a problem that you're dealing with right now, maybe in terms of an assignment that stinks or a potential plagiarism copy issue you have with students submitting things as AI, and we can try to real-time problem solve that together.
So in biology, we have the students do a project and write a scientific paper on it. And when I have them go through, turn it in, some of them came back 97% AI. How do I grade that?
So it's research paper is what they did. And the project, tell me more about the project. What did they have to do?
They got slime mold and they had to put in barriers and see how it grew. And after it grew for a day or 2, then they put in a chemical barrier like salt or cinnamon or something and monitored how it grew.
Got it. Okay, so, and I'm terrible at biology. I think I did do biology once. Maybe I did chemistry, I can't remember. But what is it in a perfect world when they walk away from that assignment? How do you want what they're learning in that assignment to help them in their career as a,
they need to be able to develop a hypothesis, scientific method.
Perfect. develop the hypothesis, and then go further from that. What else do you want them to be able to? So develop,
do the scientific method.
Yep, test, and then does it even matter what the outcome is?
Analyze if there's any mathematical, I'd like them to analyze and draw a graph to present what their results are.
Okay, analyze and present. And you want them to present it in writing specifically, because is that kind of what the industry demands? The scientific, yeah. I figured scientists, they write stuff down. They're not doing podcasts for publication. Yeah, okay, got it. And then they're writing it down. So the part that students are using AI for is the written report part. Okay, and so in the written report part that they give you, is it clear that they've absolutely done none of the lab stuff?
Yes, yes.
So they've solely put in, hey, write me a paper that speaks to this lab exercise?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That helps. All right. Well, team of higher ed educators, tell me your name.
Anne, right?
Anne, how do we help solve Anne's problem? Students aren't even doing the lab. The learning outcomes are important. We want them to develop a hypothesis. We want them to test it, and then they need to be able to analyze and communicate the results. That's the takeaway. We cannot stray from that. Students are using AI without even developing a hypothesis, without doing any testing, and just jumping ahead to step 3, which is communicating the results. How do we stopgap that? What do you think? Any ideas?
So in terms of the experimental design, like, are they taking pictures of stuff? Okay, but again, they could just cheat on that.
Yep, pictures can be reciprocated. How can we inflect a requirement of human reflection, a fingerprint, a thumbprint on this? What if we put the cart before the horse just from the jump? What if we used AI to generate the contents of the lab, and then the students were forced to test it and decide if that was real or not? What if we back engineered it?
Basically making it be and give you the protocol and then saying, like, did it include all the steps that were necessary?
Right.
Where did it go?
Like back engineer it. The thing that is ironic with this, and then you present both ways to students. What they don't realize, to do that is the harder way. To try to find something like the needle in the haystack of what's wrong here, where's the step that's missing, is harder to do than if you just trial and error it yourself, isn't it? I think that's my opinion, right?
That could be an issue. It's like, use AI, tell the students that you're generating, like, here's the lab in AI. And then, but specifically take out like 2 or 3 steps, 2 or 3 components, and see if they can figure out what's missing. You know, and
that's the critical thinking piece for sure. What's missing, or yeah, like, so set up the steps that are wrong and they have to correct it or identify it. Because the thing is, and sometimes I think as educators, I'm really guilty of this. I think to myself, well, they can't possibly know why because I haven't taught them X. But the reality is we should blend experiential learning with theory-based learning in order for cognitive behavior to stay. So the practice of comes where develop a hypothesis, test it, and analyze it. They will have to evidence they can do those things by identifying the issue. Do you see what I'm saying? They can identify that step 4 is an erroneous step, and step 7, the calculation or titration of the mold, was incorrect. If they don't understand the scaffolding of how you develop the hypothesis, what to look for in the testing, and then be able to communicate it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you're still getting the takeaway teachable parts of it. You're not abandoning that learning outcomes. You're challenging them to do it in a different way. It's not prescriptive. It's not linear anymore. And in reality, that is what real life is like. It's not linear.
Yeah, I don't think so. In problem here in 102, bio 102, they have to write a paper and then it's graded BCCSY.
Yeah, that's
for transfer. And so that's not going to work if they have to come up with an experiment and develop a hypothesis.
So back to that, is there a way that you could break up, and this is not, we're not picking on you, This
No,
is
that's
hopefully
fine.
feeling collaborative and helpful.
Yeah.
Is there a way that you can take that one overarching assignment and break it up into 3 or 4 preceding weeks of when the culmination of that has to be done? And so you get rid of other homework that you're doing. Those homework end of questions, they don't matter. Or maybe if it's significant enough that they have to do that to get to the final paper, you figure out a way to balance both. But you're taking that and you're chunking it up in 3 weeks previous so that it's harder to use AI to generate incomplete content for 3 consecutive weeks before they put all together. You see what I'm saying? So that even if at the very end in their culmination project, the written analysis, 2 of the 3 components of the writing were generated by AI or used with AI or asked to edit by AI, there's still the personal inflection in it. The other thing that I do too, again, if I'm allowing it or if I'm not, I'm very explicit. You are not allowed to use AI on this project. And that's the end of it. If it is assumed that you are using AI, you will be given a 0. Or you are allowed to use AI. This is the grading rubric that I'll use for that. Instead of a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you get a 1, 2, 3, baby. You either nailed it, you're half-assed it, or you do not count. That's your choice that you get to make. Then if you're using AI and it comes back 98% generated, guess what? You're editing that. Now you're doing double the work. So I get that you got that from AI. Now it's your job to re-edit that in a way that is non-recognizable by AI. Again, the students will do that a couple times until they figure out this is more work than if I'd just done it myself. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's no extra work on you, Anne, because what I do with my students, I push it right back. Well, this is good from a robot. Show me your human element. This is 98% generated AI. Great. You know how to use ChatGPT. Make it yours and try again. Then they're sitting there with it like, oh, I'm not going to make that mistake again. You know what I mean? Just an idea, just collaborative efforts to try to support colleagues in their like biology or paralegal. What I'm trying to get at is it's not uniform way in one specific discipline. This is cross-discipline. It works in STEM, humanities, etc. And if you have any additional questions or want to strategize about using artificial intelligence in your classroom or other AI stuff that I use to do my job better as program head, because there's a lot of work and only one of me, I'm happy to help have additional conversations about that. Any other final thoughts, comments, questions, concerns? I know we're up against the time. Everybody who's part of the meeting today will get a copy of my AI robot notes, and you can use that for whatever it's worth as well. I'd love to hear, if you want to put in the chat, if you're ready to share or not, you can, but I would really love to hear your takeaway. If AI is the answer to all of our problems, what is the question? What is the question? Thanks for being here, everybody. Have a great day.